Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Pointy Not Sharp. Today we're taking a look at a very interesting and innovative bayonet, the Belgian FAL Type A bayonet. Now when you first look at it, it looks a little bit funky and personally I didn't like the look of these two prongs coming off the muzzle ring. I thought they looked a bit stupid. But when you do a bit of research and you understand what's going on, this is actually a potentially revolutionary and very innovative bayonet with, in particular, two bits of technology which had never been seen before in bayonets, and even today they're both extremely cool, and I've got a much greater appreciation for it now. I actually don't want to sell this one anymore. Initially I didn't want to keep it, but now I think it's just incredibly cool that I understand the internal mechanisms of it. That said though, it's made to fit the 762 NATO FAL, designed by Belgian, and these were manufactured by so many different countries. 50 different countries adopted the FAL. Many of those countries made their own under license, and not all of them used this pattern of bayonet, although quite a few did. So there were plenty of other FAL bayonets out there. There was the British and the Commonwealth countries like Canada and Australia. They used the L1A3, L1A2, C1 bayonets, their own version, sort of like a number 5. I've got a video on those, so I'll just chuck that to the side. We don't need to take a closer look. Some other countries didn't like the prongs, and they adopted the Type B bayonet, which was a version of this without the prongs, slightly bigger muzzle ring and a slightly shorter blade, but very similar to what we have here. And bayonets produced after 1961 were a different pattern altogether, and I'll get into that shortly. Now, huge numbers of these were made. From memory, I think it was about 7 million FALs were made in total, and probably only a fraction of those would have this style of bayonet. So I don't know how many made total, whether it's 1 million, 4 million, I couldn't give you a number, but there's a fair few of these on the market, and they're not terribly expensive. And due to the funky look of them, you can usually pick them up for a good price, because a lot of people don't seem to appreciate them. Hopefully I can change that with this video, because they're very cool. Now, many different countries made their own variations of these. You can find these with wooden grips, like this Belgian example here. You can find them with steel grips or metal grips, and quite commonly plastic grips too, which were used by Argentina and South Africa and probably a few other countries. But a lot of the countries that manufactured their own all have slight variations, and I don't know if there's any set rules on how they had to be manufactured, but there's a lot of different variations you can find. But this is one of the much more common. This is a Belgian. I was hoping to get an Argentinian when I bought it, but I've fallen in love with this one. When I cleaned it up, the grips came up quite nice. Now, I might jump into the design. What makes this interesting? I'll pull it out of the scabbard actually, so you can have a look at it. So the blade is profiled after a US M3 fighting knife from the Second World War. So it's just that standard blade profile. This one, the blade's not in the best condition. It's a bit marked, and I've given it a clean with some steel wool. It's sort of the best I could get it without damaging it or marking it. But yeah, very common blade profile used by the Yanks with their M5, M6, M7s, M4s, not to mention everyone else with the G3. And there's a blade profile that did very well. It was very popular throughout the Cold War period and World War II as well, I guess. But we'll get to the prongs here. Now, what the prongs are, they're actually a flash hider. So the FAL didn't come with its own flash hider. So the idea being, when you do fix your bayonet, you've got these two prongs as well as the bayonet itself, which acts as a flash hider. I've never seen that in any other form of bayonet, and I thought that was pretty cool. So it makes a bit more sense when you're looking at it now. Sort of got that 1960s, 1970s M16 flash hider feel to it, where it's sort of the tri-prongs. But yeah, I thought that's pretty cool. But that's only one of the interesting features of this bayonet. The other one is it actually has a free recoil system within the handle. And that means that the recoil is sort of absorbed by a spring within the handle, which makes the bayonet free floating. It's, so they say, and it's supposed to reduce the impact of the weight of the bayonet on the barrel, stop it affecting harmonics, and decrease the amount of impact it'll have on the accuracy of the rifle. I don't know how much it actually did, but that was the idea, and from what I've read, it did have some kind of an effect. So I'll take the grips off very quickly. They just unscrew with 2 flat screws. I actually took the grips off this morning and got them under the hairdryer and got all the gun oil out of them because they were black. And after a bit of time under the hairdryer, all that gun oil came out and they got their natural colour back, which is quite nice. I might put a light coat of linseed oil on top of them to protect them. Now, as you can see, we have this little plunger here with a spring behind it. What happens is if I stick my screwdriver in here, push it rearwards, the whole, see the catch here, the whole catch assembly slides rearwards. So the idea is that that will absorb the recoil felt on the bayonet and reduce the extra weight of the bayonet on the barrel. So it's quite a cool little system. So when you attach the bayonet to the rifle, just got a standard mortise here that slides onto the bayonet lug, and you depress your button here down, and it drops this ramped plunger down. However, the rear step of the plunger here holds onto the rear of the bayonet lug. So when you fire the rifle and you get the recoil, that pushes on the rear of that plunger there, and that causes this plunger to move rearwards with the rifle while the bayonet stays in place. That's why it's free floating. So that's a very, very cool little mechanism there, and that was actually copied and adopted on the AR-10 bayonet, which I believe Portugal got a number of. I really want to get my hands on one of those, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. That being said, I will do whatever I can because I love everything Portuguese. I love everything AR-10 and get them together, and I'm a bit of an AR-10 fanboy. I'm not afraid to admit it. Anyway, these bayonets were replaced in 1961. So what happened was NATO adopted a new rifle grenade, from memory it's like 21 or 22 millimeter. Don't quote me on that. And that required a new muzzle device for the FAL, or a nice big flash hider. So the new flash hiders didn't fit on the old bayonets, so they had to construct something a lot bigger and a lot beefier to accommodate the flash hider. So these bayonets were, well, scrapped, sold off, no longer used, and instead they adopted the Type C bayonet, which is what I've got here. And that's just a socket that fits over the muzzle device, a couple of holes for the flash hider, so 4 holes, and then just a semicircular kind of blade there. I'll do another video on this one. It's in quite good condition. I'm very happy with it too. And that was sort of the end of the Type A bayonet when it was replaced by the Type C. The Type B, from my understanding, was used in conjunction with the Type A for countries that didn't like the Type A or wanted a rifle with a flash hider. So these were made for rifles without flash hiders. They've got the integral one. And rifles were made with flash hiders, came with the Type B bayonet. Anyway, I might jump into the construction. I've already discussed the blade and the prongs. As you can see, the muzzle ring here is quite large, quite thick, quite strong, and it's just a very small crossguard there. Got a steel tang goes all the way down to the pommel. We've already discussed the recoil. Now, if we have a look here, we've got a little proof mark there, little and symbol. I don't know if that's what symbol that is exactly, if that's an and or it's supposed to be something else. I can't find any information on it. I had a look at Belgian proof marks and I couldn't find one that was similar to that from sort of the 1960s, 1950s. So if you know what that is, let me know. But off the top of my head, I assume that's a proof mark. And the fact it's hidden under the grips, maybe it's part of the manufacturing process, I don't know. Then a nice big, really solid pommel. It's got a bit of weight to it. It's very, very solid, attached to that tang there, as you can see. The tang just slides in there and terminates. And yeah, we've already discussed the pull down button here. Now these pull down buttons come in slightly different configurations. Some of them are big and beefy like this, and some of them don't have so that big curved bit. They just have a little protruding stud that you just pull down with the tip of your finger. They're the two different types I've seen, the two different variations. Now I've been told you can disassemble this plunger with this pin that apparently pushes through, plunger comes out, spring comes out, and button comes out, but I'm not game enough to try that at this stage. Maybe I'll try that down the line. Maybe I'll make a video about that, I don't know. But yeah, that's the bayonet. Then we've just got simple wooden grips with, which side is it? One side has this side here, little threaded metal pieces in here, and recesses to accommodate the heads of the flathead screws. So these screws come out pretty easy, just a flathead screwdriver, and there's not too much threading on them, but you don't need a terrible lot to retain them. Then taking a look at the scabbard, it's just a steel scabbard, nice big ball finale. I don't have any markings on mine, just a standard frog stud there. They do come in little circles and little ovals as well. And a nice big beefy mouth that's retained by a single flathead screw. Due to all the black paint on this one, I can't get a screw off without sort of damaging the paint, so I'm going to leave it in place and not try to disassemble it any further. Now, I've seen these bayonets with serial numbers on them. So I've seen them with serial numbers on the crossguards, I've seen them with serial numbers on the pommels, and I've also seen them with other sort of miscellaneous markings. And I put that down to the fact that these are adopted by a range of different countries, and different countries have marked them in their own ways. But the ones out of the Belgian factory were relatively unmarked, and from what I can tell, they got marked when they were accepted into service or used by a country. But yeah, I've seen serial numbers running horizontally down the side of the pommel and up on the crossguard. I haven't come across any with markings on the blade. And I've seen a couple with some small markings on the tang as well. Now, it's my understanding that the British and Commonwealth countries like Australia and Canada did trials with this style of bayonet. I think it was the XMA1 they called it, or something like that. And there are a couple thousand made, and they sell for quite a bit on the collector's market. There's one that's been bouncing around on eBay down here for all year this year. That one's had the tip snapped off and the blade profile changed to give it a point. But you can't tell which country had them for trials because they're not marked for an individual country, but you can tell they're a trials bayonet because they have specific markings on them. I think it's like XMA1 with a serial number or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But as far as I can tell, you can't differentiate which country they belong to. Now, this style of bayonet is still in service in plenty of places. They were used by 50 countries around the world, and I promise you they're still in service somewhere. And the Argentinians actually used them in the Falklands. So the Argentinian one, as I said, they have a plastic grip that's sort of ribbed for retention. But yeah, I want to get my hands on an Argentinian one too. Anyway, that's the FAL Type A bayonet. As I said, I think it's really, really cool because of that free recoil system, which is really, really interesting. I love anything sort of mechanically different like that. And not terribly complicated, very, very simple. And I can see it working. And I like the flash hider. As I said, I used to think it was terribly ugly and looked terrific. I used to think that these slid into flash hider holes or something like that. But now that I understand it, I actually really like the look of it, and I think it's pretty cool. And I don't think I'll be selling it. Anyway, guys, if I've made any mistakes or missed anything that you think is relevant or interesting, please comment below. I'd love to hear from you. If you know Any interesting stories or any places they're still in use, comment below, and thanks for watching.